Hey there everyone, AJ back again for the Mighty Gluestick channel. So, sticking to creatures of the wide open spaces this week, we had the Lupin and the Hellhound. Another often requested monster race for me to talk about is the Wemic. You thought the Tabaxi were badass. The Wemics are lion centaurs. These things eat thundercats for breakfast. David C. Sutherland III created the concept of the Wemic for the first edition Advanced Dungeons & Dragons monster card set, number 3, in 1982 with the artwork of Jim Rosloff. They were popular critters and so were included in the original Monster Manual 2 published the following year. The Wemic appeared in the second edition for the Forgotten Realms setting in the Monstrous Compendium Forgotten Realms Appendix in 1989, and there is an ecology article written by J.F. Keeping for them in Dragon Magazine 157, published in 1990, which is quite a sprawling article actually that spreads itself across several pages, so I'm glad they stopped doing that. They appeared along with a whole lot of other monstrous races in the Complete Book of Humanoids as a playable character race in 1993. Their last appearance in print was for the Forgotten Realms setting, Monsters of Faerun, in 2001 as a player character race in Races of Faerun in 2003. So you can be a Wemic player character, and absolutely, you bet you can. And they are cool, and I have to say, very majestic. Also, more than a little intimidating, but they're quite fun, as we will find out. So, the Wemics are larger and stronger than humans. A full-grown adult stands 6 to 7 feet tall. They have a total body length of 10 to 12 feet and weigh around 450 to 650 pounds. The variation is due to gender differences in their size and muscle mass. More on the impressive physical capabilities of Wemics a little later. There are two subspecies of Wemic. The Plains Wemic are the most common, and but there's also a slightly smaller breed that live a more solitary existence in the mountainous regions. These mountain Wemics look a lot more like mountain lions, obviously, than the African lions of the Plains Wemic. In the Forgotten Realms, the Wemic inhabit the vast savanna-like grasslands known as the Shaar. They have faced a tremendous supernatural disaster since 1479 Dale Reckoning due to the spellplague, which has turned the already dry vast grasslands of the Shaar into a desert wasteland, now sadly known as the Shaar Desolation. What's more, in the middle of the Desolation there is a huge gulf of collapsed underdark chasms, which is called the Underchasm, where enormous swathes of land around the Great Rift collapsed completely. As mentioned, even before the Desolation the whole area was pretty dry, and the Wemic constantly fought with centaurs, thri-kreen, humans, humanoid elephants called the Luxo, as well as manticores, peritons, desert giants, dragons, wyverns and gnolls. Now the Wemics have to adapt to survive, abandoning their traditional hunting grounds and dens, and they've spread out following the herds to new lands across all of Faerun. So bottom line, there is absolutely a canon reason why Wemics will be travelling far and wide all across the Forgotten Realms, and they are a legitimate player character race that you can play in your game, even more so than the Lupin, as the Wemic have been part of the Forgotten Realms landscape for a very long time. One way to tell that a tribe of Wemic prides has arrived in your local area of Faerun is the sudden availability of cheap lion hides, because Wemic don't tolerate the sharing of their territory of lions, and they will hunt them all down for obvious reasons. They're natural competitors for their hunting territory. Also, it should be noted that Wemic have absolutely no need or desire to eat intelligent humanoids. They hunt deer, wild horses, elephants, rhinos, wild cattle, goats, more exotic megafauna that still exists in Faerun, such as the Beluchitherium, axebeaks and the like. Their front claws are very sharp. They can fight with both claws and weapons at the same time. Their leonine body is described as covered in dusky golden fur, while the underbelly fur is soft and white. It's short and white. They know the art of, I know that the art depicting the heads of the Wemics is contradictory in artwork, but they don't actually have the head of a lion. They have a head that looks more human-like, with forward thrust jaws, sharp predatory teeth, pointed and mobile ears set high on the head, and their eyes have the slitted pupils of felines with an iris colour ranging from golden amber hues to greens. They're kind of like the Na'vi from Avatar, except of course they're not blue. They take meticulous care in their personal grooming, particularly the males, who are almost foppish in their attention to personal appearance. In Wemic society, it is the males who seek to impress the females with their physical attractiveness, and females are pretty picky on what males they choose as their partner. Only the patriarch of the pride will have more than one female partner. Wemic males use brushes, not their tongues, to clean and groom their fur. They braid and set beads in their hair, dye it, decorate it with feathers, and their partner will help them with this. So the leader of the pride, having several partners will usually have pretty spectacular mane of hair. Their manes on the males grow down about halfway down their back. Be advised, Wemics do not tolerate anybody insulting their hair. They will fight someone for such a slight. Wemics don't buy perfume. They do commonly apply herbs to disguise their scent though, so Wemics usually smell like fresh grass, rosemary, wheat or pine, largely depending on the dominant flora of the land that they're in. The roles in Wemic society are clearly divided between males and females. Males hunt and craft weapons that they use. This includes all metal work. The females craft tents and blankets. They all preserve meats, and all Wemics eat cooked meat for their meals. They have a real taste for very spicy food, and if you seek to trade very hot chilies, you will get a great trade from them in return, such as ivory handled hunting blades, recurved antler bows, exotic hides, as well as well-crafted leather vests. They also trade for metal ingots and dye pigments that they can't produce themselves, such as purple. Wemics have cubs at any time of the year. Gestation is 6 months, and the cubs are born with their eyes open, much like human babies. They are weaned at 6 months, and by 3 years old they start their schooling in the ways of the tribe by their mother or father, so they're already toddlers. They're about the equivalent of a human 7 or 8 years old. By 6 or 7, they are young adults, and they can expect to live up to 40 to 50 years if they're female. The males typically reach a point where they start to show some infirmity due to old age. Their strength and their speed slows down a bit, and they react by getting very reckless in hunting and fighting, invariably resulting in their death. This is an accepted aspect of their society. It's considered an honourable way for a male to die. Wemics are generally trustworthy. They don't see much point in trying to conceal their emotions or lie when their tufted tail has a mind of its own. Their tails are exactly like a lion, so it's a long tail with a tuft at the end. They are passionate and energetic. Unlike lions, they are active most of the day and have pretty enormous appetite to sustain such an intense metabolic activity. They express emotion not just with their tail, but with the position of their ears, how wide open their eyes are, and their also yowls, roars, and purrs. Even when speaking common, they have a lot of cat-like vocal traits, and their own language is very hard for non-Wemics to speak. It's almost impossible for humanoids to ever master it. The vocal range of Wemics is much wider than most humanoids. The ability of males to roar is pretty legendary, and the females can sing in tones that mimic bells, flutes, and even the strum of a lute, or all three at once. A female Wemic bard has no need for more than a simple hand drum and her own voice. A male Wemic's laugh can drown out the noise in a crowded tavern. Wemics, particularly the males, are physically impressive. They're a lot stronger than your average human or orc, and they are also a lot faster when they need to be. They can run at 4 times their normal speed for bursts of 2 minutes or less once per rest, and are able to leap 10 feet high or 30 feet forward from a standing start, increasing to 50 feet forward with a running start, which most humans find pretty staggering when they witness this in action. A favoured tactic of the Wemic, both in the hunt and in combat, which they see little difference between, is to leap right over either a fleeing animal or the front shield wall of an opposing force to cut off escape or land right on top of unprepared enemies behind the front ranks. Unlike all cats, their claws on all their limbs are retractable, and they have excellent climbing capabilities, even if it's not a skill that they develop very much in their normal day-to-day lives. Being plains or living used to the environment of a savanna, they don't often get to climb things, but they can climb trees and things, and they could scale the side of a castle wall. Like centaurs, the internal organs of the Wemic are distributed between their humanoid torso and their lion body, so they can take enormous amounts of damage compared to humanoids, or as they call them, half-people. They also can't really tell the difference between different humanoids unless they travel a lot and really get to know the difference between elves, humans, hobgoblins and orcs and so on. We all look the same. Wemic prides number up to 30 individuals, or even split between with an even split between males, females and cubs. A few prides will have close interactions and form the associated Wemic tribe, spread out over their territory. So the prides are up to 30 individuals, and the tribes can be multiple prides. They have a large range and spread because of their need to hunt frequently, so they will only gather together for special occasions or times of crisis. The last 12 years has basically been one big never-ending crisis for the Wemics, and gatherings of unprecedented size have taken place as different tribes have come together to decide what best to do in order to save their entire race and way of life. There have even been gatherings where plains Wemics have spoken with mountain Wemics, and a big gathering of centaurs. In the future roll of years preserved in the story scrolls of the female Wemic witch doctors, who don't have anything but a purely pictorial written language, this will probably be known as the great daispora of their people. The pictorial depictions of their battles and history are displayed through the art on tents, carved poles, shields, or even stones laid in the ground around a more established den site. The rolls of hide that contain the story of the tribe are treasured artifacts, and the Wemics have a ritual where a conquered tribe or a pride has its history burned ritualistically to symbolise that they've been wiped from history. It's fairly brutal to any Wemic who survive from that tribe, but it aids them in psychologically integrating into the conquering pride, with a fresh slate and a new history to be part of, and there's no stigma attached to them being members of a former pride. Last couple of notes on their culture. First, Wemics tend to have one vice, and that is alcohol. They brew mal from fermented melons and grum from fermented coconut juice. They also trade for the alcohol of any other race and consume it with gusto. The entire tribe and the entire pride will drink themselves into a stupor at festivals and victory celebrations. Even the cubs will get pass-out drunk. This is a fairly dangerous combination, as you can imagine, and a drunk Wemic might accidentally kill a humanoid if the rough and double play fighting gets a little bit too rough. They will regret it in the following morning, no doubt, and lament the weakness and fragility of the half people, but that's about it. Second, they will they'll make use of magical items, but the practice of arcane magic is very rare among Wemics. It's the practice, or as is the practice of divine spellcasting. They're just not prone to reverence or worship of deities, and they're not used to studying the written word. Their own cat lord and several legendary folk heroes is about as close as you can get to having a pantheon for the Wemic, and they can do and learn the ways of the ranger and druid, though, which are far more common. Okay, so how would you make a Wemic player character for 5th edition? First, they're still medium-sized, although they're very large. They have +2 to strength and +1 to dexterity. Their base speed is 40 feet, and they have 60-foot dark vision. They are naturally proficient in athletics and survival, double proficiency bonus if they're using their sense of smell to help them track their prey for those survival checks. They have proficiency in all simple weapons and shields, particularly their signature oversized spears, throwing javelins, and recurved short bows. Wemic retractable claws are pretty formidable. They do 1d6 plus the strength bonus modifier of the Wemic, and at level 3 Wemic can make a claw attack in addition to their normal weapon attacks as a bonus action. I would ask your DM if it is okay for your Wemic character to receive the Charger feat at first level as a racial trait as well. I think that's quite reasonable. They don't have a lot of downsides as a playable race, but I encourage you to explore the difficulties they face in not being used to written language. Restraint in their drinking habits is just kind of foreign to them, just as reining in their emotions around the fragile half people is kind of difficult for them as well. They're just not used to it. Also, they're not used to the concept of liars because their emotions are written on their tails, so lying is kind of anathema to them. Wemics have a different attitude towards the role of genders in society, and this is quite important. So males will fuss over fabrics, combs, decorative trinkets. They'll get into somewhat ridiculous and blustery fights just to show off in front of females. They see absolutely nothing wrong with slinking around in provocative garments and dressing to accentuate their assets in order to attract females' attention. On the other hand, they would consider it weird to be the one that asks a female out on a date, so the traditional gender roles in courtship are kind of reversed in Wemic society, and I think that is a surefire recipe for some fun roleplay, particularly if humanoids make the mistake of thinking this is feminine behaviour on the part of the male Wemics, because they will probably get their ass kicked fairly swiftly as soon as the male Wemic understands the nature of the suggestion that their behaviour is womanly. Likewise, male and female Wemics see the behaviour and appearance of humanoids in exactly the same light. Imagine the reaction of a female Wemic to a half-elf spending hours fussing over her appearance and the assumption of the Wemic that the half-elf female must be gay. I find that hilarious personally. I love things like that. The little cultural differences are pure gold for these imaginary social interactions, and quite cathartic when you think about it. Also, let's not forget Wemics eat nothing but meat, cooked meat, all the time, and they do not appreciate a human or dwarf just assuming that they would enjoy onion or mushroom sauce splashed over their nice pan-seared steaks. A Wemic might even consider a sack of potatoes as pig bait and refer to it as such. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. In either case, share it with your group of friends and tell them about what you thought of it. Tell me how you would best use Wemics in your campaign, or how you would see their interaction with other races, particularly the more pretty races, I guess you could say. How would they interact with orcs or ogres or other types of monstrous races? Would they have a better relationship with centaurs because they're both of the same body style? Who knows? If you love what I do, subscribe and perhaps consider becoming a patron of the channel on Patreon. How much you contribute is entirely up to you and has some nice perks such as seeing the vids before everyone else does and being able to request content directly from me. Also, check out the daily game deal on Chrono, a new discount and a new game every single day. As always, thanks for listening everybody. I'll be back with more for you very soon.